but it could be a lot. I think that's just the theme of this video. Moving abroad can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. It can be all those things, but it could also be beautiful. So it's just taking the good and the bad and the in between and just putting together and realizing that's your journey. My name is Amina and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, on this channel I talk about my journey moving from the United States to currently living in Monte, Ecuador, and hopefully one day becoming a world traveler. So if you want to go on this journey with me, hit that subscribe button below. On this video today, we're going to get a little bit real. I'm going to be talking to you guys about 4 things that I think personally aren't talked about enough in the expat community, at least on a big scale, and kind of share my own experiences around these things. First and foremost, I always want to preface that anything I talk about here is my own experience, so other people's experiences may be different. And also this video isn't to deter or to persuade anyone not to move abroad or become an expat in any way. I think it's just a way to build community, share my experiences, because I always strive to make sure my channel is not only real, but I'm being transparent about the good, the bad, and the in between. I feel like it would be not authentic to not share the bad just as much as the good. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is loneliness. Now this is something that a lot of people talk about when you, especially if you're moving abroad solo like I have. Loneliness does come with the territory. But what I think people don't talk about is kind of where that loneliness stems from. For me, there are just days that I just feel alone. And in a lot of ways, I am. I came to this country fully knowing that I have people here that I know now, that I've gotten to know, that have become really great people in my life. At the end of the day, like, I am here in Ecuador. I left all primary connections I had, which were in the States, and came to Ecuador. While I won't ever say that I regret my decision or anything to that extent, I don't think that changes the fact that it can be a lot sometimes. It can be overwhelming. I always like to say, just because you're doing the right thing doesn't mean it's not hard. Just because you're doing something you should be doing, or you're doing something you want to be doing, you need to be doing, it doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that it's not difficult. But then also COVID, yeah, loneliness is a lot. I think it's like levels to it, like loneliness during COVID, loneliness during COVID in a new country, loneliness during COVID in a new country by yourself. Like there's probably higher levels to it than even that. But I don't know why I'm smiling. But it can get rough and it can get overwhelming, because I think we all can always say, there's people, like, I have people that care about me, But when you kind of make a move like this, when you move abroad by yourself, in a way you are alone, like physically. Like, I know if really things really went bad, I have people that will help me or help me figure it out. But I made this decision and I took this leap, and I feel like it's important for me to remember that that's my responsibility, and that's my, that's my journey. So it's like, I don't navigate through things relying or thinking about that. I go about it remembering that this is what I wanted to do. And the second thing I want to talk about is language barriers. The reasons I want to bring up language barriers, it seems like a small thing. I feel like a lot of people talk about it, of course, like, you're gonna go places and not really know like what to say or how to say it and all those funny things. But I don't think anyone really talks about how isolating not knowing the language of where you are can be sometimes. And that kind of fits into, I think all of these kind of fit into each other, so just be aware. But I think language barriers specifically, I know for me, I'm trying to learn Spanish, but it hasn't been the easiest venture I've partaken in. And while that's hard because, well, it's hard because in some ways I have friends here and a lot of them do speak English, but it also makes you think, like, what am I missing out on? There's so many people in this country that do not speak English. So what opportunities am I missing out on? What connections am I lacking or maybe missing out on because I don't speak the language? Which then I think creates this whole another level of pressure to learn the language. And I know anything, like learning anything, trying to learn something when you're stressed out or you're overwhelmed is not the ideal state to learn in. So it just kind of, I think, makes the foundational task that much harder. So yeah, I think, and also just thinking about moving abroad, connections are, I think, imperative. I was talking earlier to someone about, I need to get my basic needs figured out, and then I can worry about, the higher needs, like Maslow's hierarchy needs. I've talked to plenty of friends about this before, and they're like, that is a basic need. As humans, especially now with COVID, we need to feel connection. We need to feel, feel like we have community. And it can be hard sometimes, especially when you're in a new environment, not having all the tools that you necessarily want to have to fully immerse into that environment. So yeah, I think that, like I said, everyone talks about the funny hiccups and things like that. They don't talk about, I think, as much how isolating it can be, the language barriers when moving abroad, when you don't necessarily, you're not fluent in the language. Because it's one thing to be conversational and you can, know how to order food or things like that, but if you're not able to express your feelings or express who you are in that language, it can still feel limiting, no matter how many vocab, basic words you know, or how many orders you can order in that language. Number 3, the third thing I'm going to talk about is mental health and therapy. For me personally, I have a history all throughout college. I utilized therapy immensely. It was very helpful for me navigating many different obstacles and things I was going through during that time. And I think for me now, I'm actually in the process of trying to find a therapist. And this kind of goes, like I said, all these kind of overlap, but that language barrier piece, number one, I think already it is sometimes a struggle. Trying to start work with a therapist is already hard within itself. Finding the right fit, finding someone that's, you're compatible, that kind of has the right tools to kind of help you navigate what you want to navigate within therapy. But add on top of that, language barriers. I'm already limited on the therapist I can see because I need a therapist that speaks in English, because I'm not really able or at a place I can communicate my feelings or the deep things that I would need to communicate in a therapy session. Along with that, cultural differences really have an impact, like where you're going. How do people view mental health? I say this weirdly, but I feel like a lot of times I notice, like, people don't really talk about mental health here. My friends will jokingly say, like, when there's a problem, like, oh, let's go get a drink or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but what about after that? So I think it's deeper than just, finding a therapist. It's difficult sometimes because one of the first things you talk about in therapy is kind of your background, what brought you here, different things like that. And one of the first things people ask me, oh, why are you in Ecuador? Why Ecuador? Why did you come to Ecuador? And they're like, well, what? And for me, I get into the whole story. You can check the video out here because I'm plugging of me talking about my story moving to Monte, Ecuador. But it was about, leaving the US, and it's hard to explain that to some people. Like, some people here in Ecuador don't really have a full deep some people in the United States, let's just be real, people in the US don't have a deep understanding of what's going on in the US. So that's the start. But then on top of that, coming to a new country where they really don't have the tactile like connection to it, it can feel isolating as well. So it's like there's so many extra steps to trying to find mental health support, and that goes into, like I said, language barriers, cultural differences, and just an understanding of where you come from where that person may not have. So I don't have the answers for it yet. I'm still trying to navigate through it. Maybe that'll be a future video. I think another thing that is hard when it comes to therapy is if you're in it before you leave. I know for me, one of the hardest things about my transition moving abroad was that I had to stop sessions with the therapist that I had at the time, and that was really hard. I just found out that I'll no longer be able to see my therapist anymore. And that was bringing up a lot of things. No, this is one, not consequence, but one reality with moving abroad is sometimes, you know, if you're seeing specific doctors or therapists or things like that, you may not be able to continue that service outside the country, even though this is probably really hard and things like that. It's still, none of it's made me reconsider my move. I still feel just as solidified that this is what's best for me. So yeah, it's gonna be a process. It's gonna be a time to process and grieve, but it's also gonna be a time to realize how far I've come, because I built such a great rapport and made such great progress. I didn't want it to end. So that's really hard too, to transition not only to finding a new one, but also just kind of going through that grief of what you had and being scared of if you'll be able to find it. Because I was remembering one thing, I was like, how am I gonna find someone that, you know, is as great as this therapist I had? Because I had a lot of therapists that I was just like, this is not working. Or I just kind of outgrew the therapy, outgrew the progress I wanted to make. So for me, I was just like, how am I gonna find someone I click with, but also speaks English? And I think at the end of the day, you can either find excuses or you'll find ways. And right now I'm trying to find a ways to navigate it. But it's completely valid to have that fear. But yeah, but it could be a lot. I think that's just the theme of this video. Moving abroad can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. It can be all those things, but it could also be beautiful. So it's just taking the good and the bad and the in between and just putting together and realizing that you're the fourth and final thing I want to talk about is belonging. While most people will say this kind of falls into loneliness, I want to just talk about this separately, because I think that it's very specifically something I've been dealing with when it comes to belonging is kind of being in this middle place of, part of the reason, like I said, I left, I came here, it was because something was telling me to get out, you know, something inside me. Like I feel like I say that like 20 times a week, not a day, but you get the point. I feel like part of that was kind of like saying, something's telling me this is not where you're supposed to be right now, this place. And then in the transition of coming to this new place of not really yet having that belonging, and then all those other factors of language barriers and things like that coming into play as well. Meaning, I feel like you get stuck in this middle ground of you don't really feel, you know, where you were isn't where you're supposed to be, but you also don't fit in yet where you are. It can get really, really hard, because then it's like, well, where am I supposed to, where do I fit in? Where do I belong? And that's hard. And I think that it's a combination of figuring out, is this something you just have to navigate and figure out? or is this, I don't know. And it also makes you feel crazy, like, well, maybe I shouldn't have left, or maybe I'm just running from my problems, all these other things, when that's not the case. But like I said, things can spiral. So I think kind of like that not here, not there, but where kind of feeling can be a lot. So finding, I don't know, that home, that belonging, that community, that makes you feel at home, that makes you feel like this is where I'm meant to be. And while I've had a lot of experiences that really have solidified to me that this is where I'm supposed to be, I don't know for how long, it still gets a lot sometimes when you're overwhelmed and everything's not going right. It still can be a lot to process. So that is the end of this video today. Like I said, my goal with this channel is to not only give resources to talk about my journey, to show the good and all that, but also to share things that are real. I think part of my journey and my general journey is to reach a place where I can find who my authentic self is. And I think the part of being authentic is to show all parts, not just the good ones. So at the very least, I hope this gives you perspective if you're thinking about moving abroad. Like I said, this is not to persuade any or to deter anyone from moving abroad. If you are currently living abroad, I hope that maybe some of this resonated or maybe helped and maybe validated some things for you. Also, just really quick, I just wanted to add to this video. If you are abroad right now and you're feeling any of the things I'm talking about or worse or whatever, number one, I just want to be the person to validate how you're feeling, that, you know, I don't know your journey, I don't know what it's like for you, but just know your feelings are valid. And that, you know, you did this for a reason. And while, like I said in the video, it's not easy, doesn't mean it's not right. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. And you got this. If there's other things that maybe I didn't cover, please put them down below in the comments. If you have any questions, also put them down below in the comments. I don't know where this world is going to take me. I don't know what's going to happen next or anything like that. But I am slowly feeling like step by step I'm getting closer to who I want to be as a person. So thank you for going on that journey with me. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Peace. As I'm making this video right now, it's the middle of the night, and it's been after kind of a rough week of not really feeling the best and trying to work on some things surrounding my health. And yeah, so I don't know, I was laying in bed and I posted on my Instagram like, hey y'all, I'm sorry I'm not gonna have a video this week, I'm not feeling the best. And then something just told me to make this video. So if it helps you, I hope it does. I always try to listen to my gut, because I feel like sometimes sometimes the things that are hard to say, sometimes even if it's not for me, if this helps someone out there, I'm glad I did it. So I think this is also after a long leg of feeling a crap ton, I almost said this word on YouTube, a crap ton of imposter syndrome and feeling like, you know, I'm not enough and all these different things. And I'm not saying that for pity or anything like that, but just to say that, like, this video just came naturally to me. It's just something that, so maybe that's telling me that the content I'm meant to be having is more about just like the realness of all this. So I don't know, I'm gonna think about it, journal it, talk about it, think about it, whatever case may be. But if you watched this far into the video, thank you, I appreciate you. And please check out my next video.